That's what the headlines said after everything went down. But they don't tell you the whole story. They don't tell you what it felt like to stand in that courtroom wearing Walmart clothes while everyone stared at you like you were trash. I'm going to tell you what really happened. Hey everyone, thanks for clicking on this video. I know the title sounds crazy, but I promise you, every word I'm about to say is true. Before we start, drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from. How are you doing today? And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that button. This story is wild, and you're going to want to follow along for all 5 parts. My name is Tara. I'm 19 years old. I grew up in foster care in Cleveland, Ohio. I never knew my parents. All I had was a birth certificate that said Mother, Jane Doe, and Father, unknown. The state took me when I was 3 days old. I bounced around to 7 different homes before I aged out of the system at 18. Last year, I was working 2 jobs. Mornings at a gas station, nights cleaning offices downtown. I lived in a basement apartment that flooded every time it rained. My clothes came from thrift stores. My phone was cracked. My shoes had holes. I wasn't expecting anything from life except more of the same. Then I got a letter. It came to the gas station where I worked because I didn't have a real address. Just Tara Williams, care of Stop and Go 4th Street. The envelope was thick, expensive paper. It had a law firm's name printed on it. Morrison, Chun and Associates. I opened it during my lunch break. Dear Ms. Williams, this office represents the estate of Mr. Richard Hartwell, who passed away on November 3rd. We have reason to believe you may be entitled to claim a portion of his estate. Please contact us immediately to schedule a DNA test and discuss your potential inheritance. Sincerely, David Morrison, Esq. I read it 3 times. Richard Hartwell was a billionaire. Everyone in Cleveland knew his name. He owned half the buildings downtown. His face was on the news when he died. Massive heart attack at 71. But why would a billionaire's lawyers contact me? I called the number on the letter. A secretary answered and scheduled me for an appointment the next day. I couldn't sleep that night. I kept thinking it was a scam. Or a mistake. Why would someone like Richard Hartwell have anything to do with someone like me? The law office was in the richest part of downtown. Glass and steel. Security guards. Marble floors. I walked in wearing my cleanest jeans and a sweater with a small stain I couldn't get out. Everyone else in the waiting room was in suits. They looked at me like I'd walked in from the street, which I basically had. A lawyer named David Morrison called me into his office. He was maybe 50, gray hair, expensive suit. Ms. Williams, he said, not smiling. Thank you for coming. I'll get straight to the point. Before his death, Mr. Hartwell made a deathbed confession to his nurse. He said he had a daughter he'd never acknowledged. He gave us your mother's name, Jane Wilson, and said she died of an overdose 19 years ago, 3 days after giving birth. My heart stopped. He wanted to find you before he died, but he ran out of time, Morrison continued. His will states that if you are proven to be his biological daughter, you're entitled to 50% of his estate. 50% of $1 billion. I couldn't breathe. However, Morrison said, and his voice got cold, Mr. Hartwell's other children are contesting this. They claim their father was confused and delusional at the end. They're demanding proof. We'll need to do a DNA test comparing your sample to Mr. Hartwell's stored medical records. I agreed. What else could I do? The DNA test took 2 weeks. I kept working my jobs. I didn't tell anyone. It felt too crazy to be real. When the results came back, Morrison called me. It's a match, he said. You are Richard Hartwell's biological daughter. Congratulations. I cried. I cried so hard I threw up. For the first time in my life, I had a family, even if they were dead. But then Morrison said something that made my blood run cold. The other children have filed an injunction. This is going to trial. They're fighting the will. You'll need to testify. The trial started 3 weeks later. I'd never been in a courtroom before. It was huge. Wood paneling everywhere. A judge who looked bored. Rows of people watching like it was a TV show. On one side sat Richard Hartwell's legitimate children. 3 of them. Nathan Hartwell, the oldest son, 45, looked like his dad, tall, white, expensive suit. CEO of the family company. Olivia Hartwell, daughter, 40, blonde, diamonds everywhere, married to some politician. Ethan Hartwell, the youngest son, 35, tried to look casual in a designer sweater, but you could tell he was just as rich as the others. They all stared at me with pure hatred. On my side sat Morrison and a younger lawyer named Sarah who the firm assigned to help me. I sat at the table in my only decent outfit, a black dress I'd bought at Goodwill for $6. The other side's lawyer stood up first. His name was Gregory Walsh. Slicked back hair. Shark smile. Your Honor, he began, this case is simple. A young woman, with no proof of relationship to the deceased beyond a DNA test, is attempting to steal half of the Hartwell fortune. She never met Richard Hartwell. He never acknowledged her. She has no claim to his legacy. Then he turned and looked right at me. Furthermore, we have reason to believe Ms. Williams, if that's even her real name, deliberately sought out information about Mr. Hartwell's final days and manipulated the DNA evidence. I felt like I'd been slapped. That's a lie, I whispered to Morrison. Stay calm, he said. But I couldn't stay calm, because when I looked at Nathan, Olivia, and Ethan, they were all smiling. They thought they'd already won. They thought I was just some poor black girl trying to steal their money. What they didn't know, what nobody knew yet, was that I had proof. Proof that would change everything. The judge was a woman named Margaret Chin. Asian, maybe 60, reading glasses on a chain. She looked tired already, and we'd barely started. Mr. Walsh, she said, do you have evidence to support your claim that Ms. Williams manipulated the DNA results? We do, Your Honor. Walsh pulled out a folder. We have testimony from 3 lab technicians who will state that DNA samples can be contaminated or switched. We also have evidence that Ms. Williams researched Mr. Hartwell's death extensively online in the weeks before she was contacted by Morrison's firm. That was true. I had Googled him, but only because I was curious after getting the letter. Your Honor, Morrison stood up. Ms. Williams Googled a billionaire who died. So did half of Cleveland. That's not evidence of manipulation. And the DNA test was conducted by an independent, certified laboratory with chain of custody documentation. There was no contamination. We'll hear testimony on that, Judge Chin said. But first, I want to hear from Ms. Williams herself. My stomach dropped. Morrison leaned over. Just tell the truth. Answer their questions. Don't let them rattle you. Easy for him to say. I walked to the witness stand. My legs felt like water. The bailiff made me swear to tell the truth. I sat down. Walsh approached me like a lion approaching a wounded animal. Ms. Williams, he said, fake polite. Can you tell the court about your relationship with Richard Hartwell? I didn't have one, I said quietly. I never met him. Never met him. Never spoke to him. Never received any money from him. No. And yet you expect this court to believe that you deserve half of his billion-dollar estate. I don't expect anything, I said. I'm just telling the truth. The DNA test proves. The DNA test proves you share genetic material with a dead man, Walsh interrupted. But DNA doesn't prove intent. Richard Hartwell never named you in his will. Actually, Morrison called out, Mr. Hartwell's deathbed statement to his nurse specifically named Jane Wilson as the mother of his child. Hospital records confirm. Hospital records show a dying man, heavily medicated, rambling about regrets. Walsh shot back. Not a legal declaration. This went on for an hour. Walsh tried to make me look like a liar, a con artist, a gold digger. I kept my answers short. Yes. No. I don't know. But I could feel the jury watching me. 12 people who would decide if I was telling the truth or not. I could feel the Hartwell siblings watching me too. Nathan kept shaking his head like I disgusted him. Olivia whispered to her lawyer and laughed. Ethan just stared at me with cold eyes. Finally, Walsh said, no further questions. I thought it was over. Then Morrison stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to redirect. Judge Chin nodded. Morrison walked up to me. Tara, did you know your mother? No, I said. She died when I was 3 days old. Do you have any pictures of her? No. Do you have anything from her at all? I hesitated. This was it. Yes, I said quietly. I have a letter. The courtroom went silent. A letter? Morrison asked, like he didn't already know. Can you explain? I reached into my bag and pulled out an envelope. Old. Yellow. Worn. When I aged out of foster care, I said, they gave me a box with my stuff from when I was a baby. There wasn't much. Some hospital paperwork. A blanket. And this letter. It was sealed. I didn't open it until last month. And what did it say? I opened the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out the paper inside. It's dated November 20th, I said. The day before my mother died. It's addressed to my daughter. I started reading. My sweet baby girl. I'm writing this because I know I won't be around to tell you myself. I'm sick. I've been sick for a long time. But I need you to know the truth about your father. His name is Richard Hartwell. He was my boss when I worked as a cleaning lady at his office building. We had a relationship for 2 years. He said he loved me. He said he'd leave his wife. But when I got pregnant, he changed. He gave me money and told me to disappear. He said if I ever told anyone, he'd destroy me. I took the money because I needed it. But I kept this letter so you'd know. So you'd know you came from love, even if it was complicated. So you'd know your father's name. I'm sorry I can't be there to raise you. I'm sorry for a lot of things. But I'm not sorry I had you. You're the best thing I ever did. Love, Mom. By the time I finished, I was crying. The courtroom was dead silent. Walsh stood up. Your Honor, this letter is convenient but unverified. Anyone could have written. The letter was sealed in state custody for 18 years, Morrison interrupted. The envelope is dated and stamped by the foster care system. Ms. Williams couldn't have faked it. Judge Chen held out her hand. Let me see it. I handed her the letter. She read it carefully. Then she looked at the Hartwell siblings. Does anyone want to dispute the authenticity of this document? Nathan's lawyer whispered something to him. Nathan's face was red, angry, but he said nothing. Very well, Judge Chen said. We'll take a recess. Court resumes in 1 hour. During the break, I sat in the hallway with Morrison and Sarah. You did great, Sarah said. But I didn't feel great. I felt sick. I felt like the Hartwell family was going to find some way to destroy me. What happens now? I asked Morrison. Now we wait for the judge's ruling, he said. But honestly, that letter changed everything. The jury saw your mother's words. They saw proof that Richard Hartwell knew about you and abandoned you. That's powerful. But what if? Tara, Morrison said gently, you need to prepare yourself. Even if you win, those people in there will hate you forever. They'll see you as the person who stole their inheritance. Are you ready for that? I thought about Nathan's face, Olivia's laugh, Ethan's cold stare. I don't care if they hate me, I said quietly. They had a father their whole lives. They had money. They had everything. I had nothing. If my mom's letter proves I'm his daughter, then I deserve what's mine. Morrison nodded. Okay, then let's finish this. When court resumed, Walsh called Nathan Hartwell to the stand. Nathan sat down, adjusted his tie, and smiled at the jury like he was doing a commercial. Walsh asked him about his father, about the family, about Richard Hartwell's legacy. My father was a great man, Nathan said. He built an empire from nothing. He provided for his family. He was faithful to my mother until the day she died. And did he ever mention a daughter named Tara? Never. Not once. Did he ever mention a woman named Jane Wilson? Nathan paused. Just for a second. No, he said. But I saw it. The hesitation. Morrison saw it too. When it was his turn to cross-examine, Morrison stood up slowly. Mr. Hartwell, you said your father never mentioned Jane Wilson. Are you sure? Positive. So you've never heard that name before today? Never. Morrison pulled out a document. This is a check your father wrote in November, 19 years ago. The recipient is Jane Wilson. The amount is $50,000. The memo line says, for the child. Nathan's face went pale. Do you recognize your father's signature? Nathan said nothing. Mr. Hartwell, do you recognize? Yes, Nathan snapped. It's his signature. So your father did know Jane Wilson. And he did give her money. For a child. For Tara. Nathan's lawyer objected. Your Honor, this is speculation. Overruled, Judge Chen said. Answer the question, Mr. Hartwell. Nathan's jaw clenched. I don't know what that check was for. My father gave money to lots of people. $50,000? Morrison asked. With the memo for the child. On the same month Tara was born. Nathan said nothing. No further questions, Morrison said. After Nathan's testimony, the energy in the courtroom shifted. The jury was paying attention now. Really paying attention. You could see it in their faces, doubt creeping in. Maybe this poor girl wasn't lying. Maybe the billionaire really did abandon her. Walsh tried to recover. He called Olivia to the stand. Olivia looked perfect. Hair done. Makeup flawless. Designer dress that probably cost more than I made in a year. Walsh asked her softball questions. How wonderful her father was. How devoted to family. How he never would have abandoned a child. But when Morrison cross-examined her, she fell apart. Ms. Hartwell, Morrison said, your father wrote that check to Jane Wilson. $50,000. For a child. His child. Did you know about this? No, Olivia said, but her voice shook. Are you sure? Because bank records show that check was written from your father's personal account, not his business. That suggests this was private. Family business. Did your mother know? Olivia's eyes filled with tears. My mother died 10 years ago. I'm sorry for your loss, Morrison said, and he sounded genuine. But I'll ask again. Did she know? Olivia looked at her brothers. Then at Walsh. Then back at Morrison. I don't know, she whispered. But it's possible, isn't it? It's possible your father had an affair. It's possible he had a child he never told you about. Objection. Walsh shouted. Speculation. Withdrawn, Morrison said. No further questions. The trial went on for 3 more days. Walsh brought in expert witnesses who talked about DNA testing and probability. He tried to argue that the test could be wrong, that I could be a cousin or something, not a daughter. But Morrison had his own experts. And they were better. One doctor explained that the DNA match was 99.97% certain. This is as close to absolute certainty as science can provide, she said. Another expert testified about the letter. A handwriting analyst confirmed that the handwriting matched other samples of my mother's writing from hospital forms when I was born. Then Morrison dropped a bomb. He called a woman named Linda Hayes to the stand. Linda was maybe 70. Black. Gray hair. Nervous. Ms. Hayes, Morrison said, how did you know Richard Hartwell? I worked for him, she said quietly. I was a cleaning supervisor at Hartwell Industries for 30 years. And did you know a woman named Jane Wilson? Yes. Jane worked under me. She was a good girl. Quiet. Worked hard. Did you ever see Jane with Richard Hartwell? Linda hesitated. Ms. Hayes, you're under oath. Yes, she said finally. I saw them together. Multiple times. Late at night, when everyone else had gone home. They tried to be discreet, but you notice things when you work night shifts. The courtroom exploded with whispers. Walsh jumped up. Your Honor, this is hearsay. This witness has no proof. I have proof, Linda said loudly. Everyone froze. Linda reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. Old. Faded. She handed it to Morrison. Morrison looked at it. His eyes widened. He gave it to the judge. Judge Chin studied it. Then she passed it to the jury. What is this? Walsh demanded. It's a photograph, Linda said. I took it on my phone. Well, my old camera phone, back in 2004. I was coming back to the office because I forgot my keys. I saw Mr. Hartwell and Jane in the parking garage. They were kissing. I took a picture because I thought I might need proof someday if Jane got in trouble. Women like us, we have to protect ourselves. The photograph was entered as evidence. I couldn't see it from where I was sitting, but Morrison described it for the record. The photo shows Richard Hartwell and Jane Wilson in an embrace in what appears to be a parking garage. The timestamp is visible, November 2004. 9 months before I was born. Walsh looked like he'd swallowed glass. Nathan and Olivia were whispering furiously with their lawyers. Ethan just sat there, staring at nothing. The trial ended the next day. Judge Chin called both sides forward. I've heard all the evidence, she said. DNA tests, documentary evidence, witness testimony. And after reviewing everything, I'm ready to make a ruling. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. It is the finding of this court that Tara Williams is the biological daughter of Richard Hartwell. The DNA evidence is conclusive. The letter from her mother is authentic. The testimony from Ms. Hayes corroborates the timeline. And the check written by Mr. Hartwell demonstrates that he knew about the child and provided financial support, which implies acknowledgement of paternity. I couldn't breathe. However, Judge Chin continued, the question remains, what did Richard Hartwell intend in his final days? His deathbed statement to his nurse is informal but clear. He named Jane Wilson. He expressed regret. He wanted to find his daughter. That demonstrates intent. She looked at Nathan, Olivia, and Ethan. I understand this is difficult for the Hartwell children, but the law is clear. A biological child, once proven, has inheritance rights unless explicitly excluded in a will. Mr. Hartwell did not exclude Tara. In fact, his final words suggest he wanted to include her. Judge Chin turned to me. Therefore, I rule in favor of Tara Williams. She is entitled to 50% of Richard Hartwell's estate as outlined in the contested clause of his will. I started crying. Morrison grabbed my shoulder. You won, he said. You won. But I wasn't crying because I won. I was crying because my father, the man I never met, had wanted to find me. He'd regretted leaving me. And even though he ran out of time, he'd tried to make it right. That meant more to me than any amount of money. Walsh immediately filed an appeal, but Morrison said it wouldn't go anywhere. The evidence was too strong. Nathan stormed out of the courtroom without looking at me. Olivia stopped at the door. She turned and stared at me for a long moment. I hope you're happy, she said coldly. I didn't know what to say to that. Was I happy? I didn't feel happy. I felt complicated. Ethan was the last to leave. He walked past me, then paused. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I believe you. I think my father did have an affair. I think he did abandon you. And I think that was wrong. Then he left. Winning the trial didn't feel the way I thought it would. I thought I'd feel relief. Or joy. Or at least some kind of closure. Instead, I felt empty. The headlines were everywhere. Foster kid wins billions in shocking trial. Poor black girl defeats billionaire's heirs. DNA test proves secret daughter. Reporters called me constantly. I changed my number 3 times. Strangers sent me messages on social media. Some were supportive. Some were hateful. Some wanted money. Some wanted to tell me I didn't deserve it. Morrison's firm helped me set up a trust and financial advisors. The money, over $500 million after taxes and legal fees, hit my account 2 months after the trial. I stared at the bank statement for an hour. All those zeros. It didn't feel real. The first thing I did was quit both my jobs. The gas station manager was shocked. You're just not showing up anymore? I'm sorry, I said. I can't explain right now. But thank you for giving me a chance. The cleaning company didn't even say goodbye. They just took me off the schedule. The second thing I did was move out of my basement apartment. I rented a small house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing crazy. 2 bedrooms. A yard. A place where water didn't flood in every time it rained. It felt like a palace to me. But it also felt lonely. I'd spent my whole life around people. Foster homes, shelters, cramped apartments. Now I had space. Silence. And it scared me. I started having nightmares. In them, I was back in the courtroom. But this time, the jury said I was lying. The judge called me a fraud. Nathan, Olivia, and Ethan laughed as security dragged me away. I'd wake up sweating, my heart racing. Morrison recommended a therapist. Her name was Dr. Ellis. She was kind, patient. You're experiencing trauma, she said during our first session. Not from the trial itself, but from a lifetime of instability. You've never had security before. Now you do. And your brain doesn't know how to process that. So what do? I asked. You learn to accept it, she said. You learn that you're allowed to have good things. That you deserve them. That was hard. I'd spent 19 years being told, directly or indirectly, that I didn't matter. That I was disposable. That I should be grateful for scraps. Now I had millions of dollars, and I still felt like I didn't deserve it. 3 months after the trial, I got a text from an unknown number. This is Ethan Hartwell. Can we talk? I stared at the message for 10 minutes. Finally, I replied. Why? Because I think we should. No lawyers. No cameras. Just talk. I didn't trust him, but I was curious. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Neutral territory. Ethan showed up in jeans and a hoodie, trying to look casual. But I could still see the expensive watch. The designer sneakers. We sat across from each other, awkward. Thanks for meeting me, he said. I didn't say anything. Look, he sighed. I know this is weird, but I wanted to apologize. That surprised me. Apologize for what? For how we treated you. Nathan and Olivia were awful. And I didn't stop them. I didn't stand up for you. I was angry about the money, and I let that blind me to the fact that you're our sister. Our sister. Those words hit me hard. I'm not trying to be your family, I said quietly. I don't expect anything from you. I know, Ethan said. But that doesn't change the facts. You're our half-sister. Our father left you behind. He should have taken care of you. And if he couldn't, we should have. You didn't know I existed. But now we do, he said. And I want to know you. If you'll let me. I studied his face. He seemed genuine. But I'd been burned before. Why? I asked. Why do you care? Ethan leaned back. Because finding out about you made me realize how many secrets our father kept. How many lies he told. And it made me question everything I thought I knew about him. About our family. He paused. Nathan and Olivia want to pretend you don't exist. They want to keep living in the fantasy that our father was perfect. But I can't do that anymore. I need to know the truth. And you're part of that truth. We talked for 2 hours. Ethan told me about growing up as a Hartwell. The pressure. The expectations. The way their father controlled everything. Who they dated, what schools they went to, what careers they pursued. He loved us, Ethan said. But he also saw us as extensions of himself. Not as real people. I told him about foster care. About being moved from home to home. About feeling invisible. I used to see billionaires on TV, I said, and think they lived in a different world. A better world. But now I realize everyone's messed up. Just in different ways. Ethan laughed. Yeah, money doesn't fix anything. It just makes the problems more expensive. Before we left, Ethan said, I know Nathan and Olivia won't come around. But if you ever want to know more about our father, the real him, not the public version, I'll tell you. I have letters, photos, stories. I thought about it. Okay, I said. I'd like that. Over the next few months, Ethan and I met regularly. He showed me pictures of Richard Hartwell I'd never seen. Not the polished CEO in magazines, but the real man. Fishing with his kids. Playing golf. Laughing. He also showed me the darker side. The affairs. The lies. The way their father manipulated people. He wasn't a good man, Ethan said once. But he wasn't pure evil either. He was complicated. And I think he knew he'd made mistakes. That's why he tried to find you at the end. Do you think he really loved my mom? I asked. Ethan was quiet for a moment. I think he loved her the way men like him love people. Selfishly. Imperfectly. But yeah, I think he did. That gave me some peace. 6 months after the trial, I decided to do something I'd been thinking about for a while. I started a foundation. The Tara Williams Foundation for Foster Youth. I put $10 million into it to start. The mission was simple. Help kids aging out of foster care. Pay for college. Provide housing. Give them job training and therapy. All the things I wish I'd had. Morrison helped me set it up. Sarah joined as the executive director. At the launch event, reporters asked me why I was giving away so much money. Because I know what it's like to have nothing, I said. And I know how much just a little bit of help can change someone's life. If I can do that for even one kid, then all of this was worth it. The foundation became my purpose. I wasn't just a girl who won a trial. I was someone who could make a difference. And that felt better than any amount of money. A year after the trial, I stood in front of a building with my name on it. The Tara Williams Center for Youth Empowerment. It was in the same neighborhood where I used to work at the gas station. The same streets where I'd walked with holes in my shoes and an empty stomach. Now there was a brand new 3-story building with classrooms, a computer lab, a cafeteria, and apartments for kids aging out of foster care. Sarah stood beside me. Ethan came too, which surprised me. You did this, Sarah said, smiling. We did this, I corrected. The center had been open for 3 months. We'd already helped 22 kids, gave them housing, helped them apply for jobs in college, connected them with therapists and mentors. Every single one of them reminded me of myself a year ago. Lost, scared, convinced that life would never get better. But now they had hope. The event that day was a small celebration. Nothing fancy. Just the kids from the center, some staff, a few reporters. One girl, a 17-year-old named Kayla, asked if she could speak. I handed her the microphone. I just want to say thank you to Ms. Tara, Kayla said, her voice shaking. Before I came here, I was living in my car. I couldn't afford food. I thought I was going to end up on the streets. But then I heard about this place. And Ms. Tara didn't just give me a room. She gave me a chance. She believed in me when nobody else did. Kayla started crying. So thank you. Thank you for not forgetting about people like us. I hugged her. Everyone clapped. But I was the one who felt grateful. These kids didn't know it. But they were saving me just as much as I was helping them. After the event, Ethan and I walked through the building. This is incredible, he said, looking around. You built something real. It's just the beginning, I said. I want to open more centers. In other cities. Help thousands of kids. You will, Ethan said. I know you will. We stopped in front of a wall covered in photos. Pictures of every kid who'd come through the center. Their smiling faces. Their dreams written on cards beside their photos. I wish I could have met him, I said quietly. Ethan knew I meant our father. Me too, he said. I think he would have been proud of you. Prouder than he ever was of Nathan or me. You think so? I know so, Ethan said. We spent our whole lives doing what he wanted. You're doing what you want. That takes courage. Later that night, I went back to my house. No longer the small rental, but a real home I'd bought. 3 bedrooms. A garden. A place I planned to stay. I sat in my living room with a cup of tea and thought about everything that had happened. A year ago, I was cleaning offices and living in a flooded basement. Now I was a millionaire, a philanthropist, someone who was making a difference. But more than that, I was free. Free from the fear that I didn't matter. Free from the shame of being abandoned. Free from the belief that my life would never be more than survival. I pulled out my mother's letter, the one that had changed everything, and read it again. You're the best thing I ever did. I folded it carefully and put it back in my safe. I hope I'm making you proud, Mom, I whispered. The next morning, I got a call from Morrison. Tara, I have news, he said. Nathan and Olivia have officially dropped their appeal. The case is closed. The estate is fully settled. It's over. It's over, I repeated. Yes. Congratulations. You've officially outlasted them. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt relieved. Thank you, David, I said.